Yeah, I say that tongue in cheek. I mean, if you're a Raiders fan, it's a bit rough. We can't even enjoy a victory without some sort of drama, which is okay. I guess it's par for the course. And, I think some out there would say that they saw this coming. I know I can speak for myself when I say that, I think I mentioned that last year, I wouldn't be surprised if something like this happened because we were performing poorly. And I wouldn't say we're performing poorly, but we're definitely underperforming what our expectations were. And, as everyone knows, Davante Adams has requested a trade out of Las Vegas, and we'll definitely get into that. And I also got plenty of other topics about the NFL, injuries, and all that other good stuff. So we're going to dive right into it. And of course, as I was leading off, we're talking about Davante Adams. He requested on Tuesday a trade from the Las Vegas Raiders, and it's been reported that his preferred destination is New Orleans Saints, who Drew kind of pointed out. He had a video that we put out a couple of days ago. One, there was a full video where he was driving and he gave his raw, authentic reaction to it. And then there was another one that we posted that was more of a cut down version of it. But the Saints are at the top of that list. Obviously, the New York Jets are at the top of that list with Davante's connection with Aaron Rodgers. A couple of other teams that I threw out there was like the Buffalo Bills, Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens obviously come to mind. San Francisco 49ers, I wouldn't be surprised. I've heard their name thrown out there, and that was something I texted Drew about. And I think the 49ers are probably in play. I imagine that the Raiders will make this decision whenever it suits their timetable. I mean, I have a lot of opinions about how I feel like everything is kind of playing out and how it's kind of gone so far. And so for the most part, though, I mean, kind of saw this coming. It's just, I guess what's heartbreaking about it is it's coming to reality. And, all the off season talk about, I've always wanted to be a Raider, and Davante Adams, which basically was saying that consistently, and now him formally requesting a trade. And I think what's also frustrating too is, obviously some Raider Nation fans are basically saying, he's quitting on the team. And then there's other Raider fans that are kind of blaming the team, I would say, or at least the Raiders organization, for letting Adams kind of feel the way he does. Look, I hate when a player in the middle of the season quits on a team. I don't like it, but I will say too, for Davante Adams, I get it. We traded for him so that way he can play with his best friend in a new regime. It didn't go great the first season. And then in the second season, we thought that we'd make it up to him by signing Jimmy Garoppolo, which wasn't any better. And then he had to play with, Brian Hoyer. He had to play with Aiden O'Connell. And then now we said, we're definitely going to address it. And we go with Gardner Minshew. And no disrespect to Gardner Minshew. He's in the top 10, I think, in completion percentage, and I think in yardage or something of that nature. But, for the standard that Davante Adams is used to in terms of winning, the Raiders weren't winning. And, I'm sure with AP's comments earlier this week, that kind of made it seem like that it had fallen apart really quickly. If any of the reports are true from what I was seeing from like Adam Scheffler and Ian Rappaport or any of the other kind of insiders, basically this was kind of in the makings for about a year from what they're saying. Is his camp, Davante Adams' camp, kind of threw this out there with, kind of mentioning it, a change of scenery would probably be a good thing. The Raiders didn't do so. And then at the same time, what made it confusing is Davante Adams on his side. Obviously, he was saying, I don't want to go anywhere. I'm going to play for this team, which I think is great. I don't blame him, though, for wanting to leave to win. And I thought in the offseason that the Raiders might do this as a solid to him, to where he has an opportunity to win a championship since we're not going anywhere. And also, too, he has a pretty hefty contract and we can get some assets from it. But I didn't think that it would sour to this, to where it's like a relationship breakup in a sense. And, I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little upset. Like, I wish Davante Adams wouldn't have done this right now. We did come off of a victory. We maybe could build off of it. I'm not saying that we have playoff aspirations, but at least we can be competitive. But, at the same time, the NFL is a business, unfortunately. And, he's a competitor. He wants to win. And I get it. So, I do have some teams, as I had mentioned. We talked about the Saints, talked about the Bills, talked about the Jets, the Ravens, the Steelers, the 49ers. I think, if I'm being honest, the Saints, I was just hearing, don't have the cap space to really make the deal happen, according to Jordan Schultz on Colin Cowherd's show this morning. So I'm just going to say that the Saints is probably the one that the Raiders would like to do the most, only because they probably have the capital for it. Probably a team that obviously is not within the conference. So that would be, I think the Raiders would prefer to not trade within the AFC, definitely not within the division, which they won't do. And also to like an NFC team that's probably best for them as well. So I think that's what they're targeting right there. And then, the New York Jets, I think, are probably going to be the one that pays a king's ransom for Davante Adams, if I'm being honest, because, a lot of people were saying out there that, Davante Adams is going to be a Jet. It's just a matter of time. Unfortunately, it looks like that they're correct, or at least on the surface of it. But who knows? Because just like what Drew had mentioned, in his video, I don't know if Davante Adams wants to go from one dysfunctional organization to another. And if I had to give my opinion, I think the Raiders are, in terms of like dysfunctionality, I don't think the Raiders are nearly as bad as the Jets. I think it's completely obvious with the Jets head coach situation with Robert Saleh and Aaron Rodgers that they do not like each other. I know that they're trying to put on a face in the public, and, Aaron Rodgers is trying to play it down. I'm calling BS on that. I completely think that, neither one of them like each other. They're kind of just doing it for the team, but I don't think Robert Saleh has a pulse on that locker room. And to be truthful too, we don't know if behind the scenes, Aaron Rodgers is kind of telling Davante Adams, hey man, don't come, or at least wait one season, or whatever the case may be. Because if I'm the Raiders and I'm thinking about trading Davante Adams, I may want Garrett Wilson in that trade as well. And I don't know if the Jets are crazy enough to do it for potentially a 1 year, maybe a longer term rental. Who knows? So we'll see with that. But I think the Jets are probably the ones that's going to pay the most if we had an asking price, just because I think with the media pressure and let's hypothetically say that Aaron Rodgers is wanting Davante Adams on the team, which he probably is. Me saying that he doesn't want him to join this dysfunctional organization is probably nothing. It's probably just me assuming that Aaron Rodgers is trying to do his guy a solid and not join him in, in New York. But, if Davante Adams does go there, I can imagine that the Jets are going to have a lot of pressure to pull that trigger to get a deal done to where Davante Adams does join Aaron Rodgers. And also, too, you're going to want to make Aaron Rodgers happy, because there's an opportunity, and I think it's a real possibility, that this whole Jets team is going to rebuild if they don't do anything. And especially if ownership doesn't meet the demands of Aaron Rodgers or whatever the case may be. So I think if there's ever a time to make a decision to hopefully save face and be competitive, it'd probably be now. I think a team that would probably benefit Davante the most would probably be like the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, they would be absolutely scary. I think they have the cap space for it. The Baltimore Ravens, did they handle the Bills handedly? Yes, they did. But one of the things that you can see too is they're not passing the ball like 30, 40 times like, normal NFL teams. Are definitely running the ball a lot, which is great. And they're definitely relying on Derrick Henry, Justice Hill. Lamar Jackson is still seeing some rush opportunities, but obviously a lot less, just because you want to preserve him and not get him injured. But one of the things that this Ravens team doesn't really have is they don't really have an alpha receiver. And Zay Flowers, I think, is a good receiver for Lamar for like a quick route, or, if you want to run a go route and you want to send him out there, I think that's fine. Do I think that you can put him on the outside and be challenged with the best cornerback? Probably not. And I think this is where Davante Adams, if he were to step into that Ravens offense, I think the production for him would go down, if I'm being honest, for Davante Adams. I don't think he would be seeing 15 targets or whatnot. But I think ultimately, if he wants to win, that would be the best opportunity for him to go to, because they're already a great team. They have a very good defense. They have a really good offense with a running back that's leading the league right now in rushing. They are 2-2 right now. They lost ironically to the Raiders, and they also lost to the defending Super Bowl champions on week 1. So definitely not a great start, but starting to pick up steam. Really steamrolled through the Cowboys, beat up on the Bills, and now if they can add a playmaker like Davante Adams, I think that just makes them that more dangerous. And I would say that they are probably the AFC threat. I know the Chiefs are still in there, but they're getting decimated with injuries right now. And yes, they're winning. Some would say because of the refs, and maybe that's true, but also, again, I was mentioning this in my bold predictions that, complacency, in my opinion, is a real thing. They're trying to three-peat, which has never been done before. And their number one receiver, referring to the Chiefs, just got injured, and they really don't have anybody. So, and I'll get back to the Chiefs in a minute. But my point being is with the Baltimore Ravens is they could rely on Davante Adams to be that guy to beat a DB off the line, to find open space, be able to read coverages just like Lamar does. And I think this clearly would be the best receiver Lamar Jackson would have ever been on the same team with. And I think this would propel the Ravens into a realm of dominance that it would be quite scary. And even if you were going to rent Davante Adams for one season, I think for the Ravens, it's definitely worth it. Because Lamar Jackson has a lot of questions on him himself. He came off of an MVP season, but yet lost into the playoffs. And you get him a guy like this, and now it's like, okay, you have everything you need now. What are you going to do? So I definitely think the Ravens are in a huge play, especially if the Jets don't really pull the trigger, or they don't pay enough. Who knows? Also, in a scenario, the Raiders could, out of spite, to not wanting to send Davante Adams to his best friend, or not his best friend, excuse me, to his former teammate Aaron Rodgers, as a form of punishment. And I say that in air quotes because it's probably not really punishment. Send him to Baltimore. More likely though, the punishment would be sending him to New England Patriots or Cleveland Browns. Probably would be a bigger punishment. But regardless though, so I definitely think the Baltimore Ravens would be the perfect spot for Davante. Drew Code Sports Talk is supported by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is your go-to app for tickets, making it super easy to find the best deals. They even rate each ticket deal on a scale of 1 to 10, so you're getting your money's worth. And as a special thank you to our listeners, we've got a promo code just for you. Use Drew Code at checkout to get $20 off your first order. That's $20 off your first purchase, whether it's for the game that you've been dying to see or that concert that everybody is talking about. Head over to SeatGeek now, find your perfect seat, and use Drew Code for $20 off your first order. SeatGeek. Get your tickets to the action today. Also, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they do have George Pickens. They don't really have a second guy that I can think of off the top of my head. It's really just like a band of collection of receivers. You put in Davante Adams in there. Clearly, he's the number one. George Pickens can be the number two guy. And for Justin Fields, who is showing flashes of huge improvements and comfortability, getting a lot of confidence in this Steelers offense with Arthur Smith, that would be huge for Justin Fields as well, especially a receiver at the pedigree of Davante Adams. That would be absolutely hands down a really good spot for Davante and for the Steelers as well. I think either one of those two AFC North teams getting Davante Adams could be the difference maker between making them, a wild card contender to an AFC threat for sure. And I did mention too, the San Francisco 49ers. That was a team that I was thinking that would probably be willing to use draft capital, maybe even put a player in there. Which player, I don't know. If I was really thinking about it, probably be a defensive player that AP would want. But if Davante Adams went to the Niners as well, the Niners could really use a player like Davante Adams, especially with having Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings. They have a plethora of players currently. But you add Davante Adams, who doesn't really need to be the number one guy, but can step in there, especially when it comes to weeks of Deebo maybe being out. Brandon Ayuk still hasn't really showed up since he got paid. Juwan Jennings is basically carrying the receiving responsibility. You have George Kittle. I mean, I would hate that as well because it's the Niners, and nothing is worse than when the Niner fans in this town have something to root for right now. they're still saying that they're good, but the record is showing them as like a 500 team. So, the Niners are definitely in play here. The Buffalo Bills, I think, would make a lot of sense for Davante as well. And these are primarily AFC teams that would be basically take him to the next level. And, the Bills may not do it just because they just got out of a situation with Stephon Diggs. But Davante Adams doesn't strike me as somebody that would hold a team hostage or give an attitude in that sense. At least I didn't suspect it for the Raiders. That's why I think Davante requesting a trade and how quickly things soured just seems such a surprise, because it's not like it built up like it did with Stephon Diggs and the Buffalo Bills. But I think Davante going to the Bills would definitely elevate that offense, and it would give them a true number one guy with those young receivers. And I'm sure they want to remain young, but having a veteran receiver there, especially a go-to guy, I think would make a huge difference as well. And for Josh Allen, that would be tremendous. So I think that's an option as well. Davante Adams definitely has talent. And in my opinion, he's still top 2, top 3 receiver in the league. And I know him being on the Raiders, for some analysts, really notched down like the quality of a receiver he is. But there's absolutely no doubt when he got traded to the Raiders, he was arguably the number one receiver in the league. And I would even argue, I still think he is. He hasn't proven that he's not. Discounting him because of the team he's on doesn't mean that he, the player, is lesser than, in my opinion. Like, yes, you have Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Now you have Malik Neighbors, who is coming onto the scene. Yeah, you have all these fantastic receivers, but still, there's absolutely no doubt that Davante Adams is still, arguably the number one receiver just with his skill set. But any team that gets him is definitely going to be heading in the right direction, potentially a contender. And we'll see what the Raiders get. Like, this is the question that I think is hard, is what are the Raiders going to do? Are they going to do a solid by Davante Adams, who maybe they feel like that they are, being blindsided by, or are they just going to do what's best for the Raiders? If I had to give a hunch, I'd say they're going to do what's best for themselves, and they're going to trade him to wherever. Like, don't be surprised if, and I'm just throwing a team out there, I have no idea if this is going to happen. Don't be surprised if the Rams get into play. Don't be surprised if the Eagles get into play, which I don't think so, but maybe. The Commanders, maybe that would be an interesting one. Just some teams to throw out there. I don't know if there's any truth behind it. I think solely it's to the Jets or the Saints. I definitely think that the Ravens are in play for sure. But I mean, who knows? I think after this week, we're going to see what teams, out of the teams that I've named, we're going to see which ones are really looking to bring on Davante Adams to, hopefully win a championship. And don't be surprised if maybe the Detroit Lions get involved. I mean, yes, they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, but, they have Jamison Williams, who, is a good receiver. It's got some flash to him, but put in Davante Adams there to be like that legit outside receiver. And who knows what this offense can look like. And it's already good enough now. And I can't imagine that Detroit doesn't want to bolster talent as well. So just a bunch of teams to throw out there to just say like where Davante might go. And for those that have been saying, I've been hearing the Los Angeles Chargers, I've been hearing Kansas City Chiefs. I think RG3 or whoever else has been saying the Kansas City Chiefs need to do everything they can to get Davante Adams. I'm going to just say this right now, and I think everyone in Raider Nation, I'm going to say everybody in Raider Nation will say there'll be a cold day in hell before Davante Adams gets traded to a divisional rival, especially the Chiefs. The only way the Chiefs are getting Davante Adams is by some happenstance. The Raiders trade away Davante Adams to a team that is going to release him or waive him for whatever the reason is, and then he gets picked up or he gets signed as a free agent outright to Kansas City. That is the absolutely only way that happens. But I have a hunch, though, a team that is going to pay resources, draft capital to get Davante Adams is not just going to waive him or release him. And also, too, I'm just going to play this out there. I don't think Davante Adams, who grew up as a Raider fan, just played the last two and a third seasons with the Raiders is going to want to go to a division rival. I think that he's still a Raider fan at heart in some respects, to where he's not going to want to go to the Chiefs. He's hated the Chiefs the last, again, almost 3 full seasons. I doubt that he's going to want to go there and I don't want to say do a KD thing when he joined the Warriors as like a negative, but like I don't think he wants to join the Chiefs just because he, you can't beat him, you join him kind of a thing. So that's what I would assume. But just a couple of stats I would just want to throw out there too regarding Davante Adams, which is why I don't blame Davante Adams for asking for a change of scenery or a trade request, because of the sourness that happened since his time with Las Vegas. Because remember, he got traded shortly after Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler took over operations and coaching for the Raiders. Then they made that trade to get Davante Adams and paired him with his college quarterback, Derek Carr, which both Fresno State Bulldogs, which here in the Valley we absolutely loved when they played together. So, of course, they look great together. And here's some stats. So in 2022, this is the first full season, of course, with the Raiders. Davante Adams played 17 games. He had 100 receptions off of 180 targets. 1,516 yards with 14 touchdowns. That was with Derek Carr and 2 games with Jarrett Stidham, which we've on this page and on our show, we've talked about religiously how we thought as Raider fans, or at least for our team, how it was a bad idea to just get rid of Derek Carr. 100%, like he had 9 years to figure it out, but he never had a legit defense. And we only get 1 season with him and Davante Adams, and it was a productive season. But let's not forget, too, the coach that he had in Josh McDaniels, not a great coach. And that was playing out in front of us as the season wore on in 2022. So in 2023, when that season started, we don't have Derek Carr. We let him go. We let him walk for nothing. We didn't even trade him. And we signed Jimmy Garoppolo, who was coming off an injury of his own. And we signed him. He plays 7 games. And then Aiden O'Connell takes over the rest of 2023 with 11 games left. Now, granted, there was a start in between, and then he started the remaining, I think it was 7 games of the season following Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler getting released. And Davante Adams still caught 103 passes off of 175 targets, 1,144 yards, and still had 8 touchdown receptions, which was still pretty productive. Very good. And then this season, out of 3 games, he's had 18 receptions off of 27 targets, 209 yards with 1 touchdown reception. That was from the 3 games that Gardner Minshew has played right now. Week 4, of course, he was out with a hamstring injury, and he remains out for week 5 with a hamstring injury. So for the most part, like, we have Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer, Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew. We've had 5 quarterbacks in less than 3 full seasons, 2 and a third realistically. That's only 37 games. And we expect Davante Adams to be happy with that. And I'm cool, and I understand Raider Nation is all about the shield. They don't care. No player is above the shield. I get it. I completely understand. In some respects, I agree. I'm also just going to say I don't blame Davante Adams for looking for a team that's competitive for how he's been treated. Now, I'm not saying that the new organization has treated Davante Adams badly. I think this is more of Davante Adams is just looking to be competitive, and he doesn't want to have a wasted season. And I wouldn't blame him. So anyways, that's all I'm going to say about that with the Davante Adams thing. I went on a really long rant on that, but I haven't really had a chance to talk to anybody about it. So